Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and it is the beginning of week 7 of my 100 book challenge, where I have challenged myself to read 100 books that I already own before buying another book. And I have not bought any other books. The challenge is going well. I start the week at book 35, and I hope to be at book 40 by the end of the week. The 5-book-a-week pace is doing me very well. And let's see where I end up. I have finished my 36th book, The Dharma Bums by Jack Kerouac. And oh my, what a slog this was. I started it on a Friday afternoon after I DNF'd Hex, which was a horror novel. And it took me until Monday night to finish this book. And whatever I did over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday afternoon, I just really did not want to read this book. This is a reread for Remember December. I originally read this somewhere in the aughts. Or I should say I listened to the audiobook in the aughts. And I rather liked it. At least my memory says I rather liked it. And I was really looking forward to revisiting this book. Because the prompt was, read a book that you don't remember anything about. And really, all I remembered was Ray Smith on the watchtower overlooking the fires on Desolation Mountain. And when I read this again, I'm sorry, I said, a slog. It's about Ray Smith, and as a commenter on one of my lives said, it's about drugs, alcohol, and sex. There is a little bit of Buddhism thrown in here, which was really what I was looking for. And the Buddhism flavor that he talked about was okay. I understood a little bit more than when I probably listened to the original audiobook, but still, it just did not captivate me. I really should have DNF'd this book and read something I truly enjoyed. I have finished my 37th book, In the Blood of Martyrs by Erica Summers. This is a long short story or a novelette, or however you want to count it. It's about 45 pages long, and you buy it as an individual book on Amazon. It is the story of a young woman named Odessa who is going to a Pentecostal church somewhere way out where that you're not quite sure. And there's going to be a special event going on where the minister comes to the congregation and saying, you can be saved by the blood of martyrs. And then there's a man who comes up to confess his great sins. And I'll leave it at that. As a short story novelette, it kind of worked. I'm not particularly religious myself, and this story is rather critical of religious beliefs. It is not explicitly so, but it is implicitly so when you read this story and you listen to the themes that the author is talking about. The author does have an afterword where she describes her own religious upbringing and how it related just a little bit to what you see in this story and some of the extreme beliefs that she encountered. Not quite as extreme as what you actually get in this story, because this really is a horror story. It is also very much a self-published short story. You can just feel that it just lacks the quality that you would pick up in a magazine or a book. It is by no means a bad short story or a bad example of self-publishing. It just is a little bit of the limit you get, because this author possibly could go places if she were to go the professional publishing route and just get a little more polished in her stories. It's a super cold morning here in Virginia. It's about 25 degrees, and I'm out like an idiot talking about books on my sun deck. I have finished my 38th book, People Like Us, by J.D. Rhodes. This is the second book in the Grifter's Song series. The Grifter's Song is a series of novelettes and novellas and maybe even novels about a couple of grifters named Sam and Rachel. They actually had a bad deal with the mob where they tried to steal some money from the mob. And now they're on the run, trying to make their grift, make some money. And they're getting into trouble because the mob is after them. Now, as I said, this is a series. There are a number of different authors. Each book is authored by someone else. I do believe authors will make a repeat appearance and write more books in the series. But now it's sort of like one of those house name series that are hidden under a name and multiple authors. Only in this case, you just get to know the author who actually wrote the book. And I kind of like that. So in this story, Sam and Denise are contacted by one of Sam's old teachers in the grifting scheme. And she wants his help to rob a white supremacist professor, because this white supremacist professor loves Civil War memorabilia. And she's got an idea of how to make him pay a lot of money for a fake sword that supposedly belonged to Stonewall Jackson. And you know, it's going to get good because, of course, Sam and Rachel are up for a good grift. And they're really eager to bring down a white supremacist. Only the mob has an assassin after them. And their Mark, the white supremacist, thinks, maybe I can grift these two, not knowing that he is being grifted himself. Exciting. Now, my one problem with this is that I think this series could get rather repetitive rather quickly unless the formula gets broken. The formula now is that Sam and Denise get hired by someone else to do a grift, and there are complications. I hope future entries in this series vary that formula just a little. or I probably won't go much further than book 3 or 4. I have finished my 39th book, The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. I read it in the Kindle collection from Delphi, which is basically the entire works of H.G. Wells, because everything he's published is now in public domain. This was one of his very famous science fiction novels. I believe it was written and published in the late 1890s. I know a portion in this book was listed as being published in 1895, and I'm not sure when the rest of the novel was published. This is a reread from me. I read it about 15 years ago. It's not part of Remember December rereads, but it's just a book that I wanted to pick up and reread. It starts off describing a shipwreck somewhere down near the equator. And it is a man who survives the shipwreck and comes upon an island. It is not a very well-known island. It's not on all the maps, but it is inhabited. And it is inhabited by a man named Dr. Moreau and his servant Montgomery. There are also other things on this island. At first, the narrator thinks they're just very strange people until he learns that they're not really people. Now, I'm not going to give too much of a spoiler. I'm pretty sure most people know what this story is about, that Dr. Moreau is doing scientific experiments on animals and bringing them up to near human form and intelligence. Now, the science that Wells uses is really, really out of date. I mean, it was the 1890s, and the method that Dr. Moreau used is vivisection, which is basically operating and trading body parts and so forth. You know, nothing that's too believable nowadays. But for his time, it was really a remarkable thought that an animal could be elevated above that animal level into that near humanness. And what's even more curious is what Wells tells us about humanity in raising up these animals. These beast men, they develop laws. They develop a religion around Dr. Moreau and his house of pain, because it is very painful for an animal to become a beast man. Now, the first part of this book, the first few chapters just left me wanting a bit. But once he gets into this island, once you get to know what Dr. Moreau is up to, this is a really fascinating and excellent look at what Wells thought of humanity and religion and law, and I highly recommend it. I have finished my 40th book, Sister, Maiden, Monster, by Lucy A. Snyder. This is a horror novel. This is weird, strange, magnificently, wonderfully off the chart, bizarre. It starts off with a young woman who's had a day working. Her name is Erin. She's returning to her boyfriend. And there is a pandemic going on, and she's really worried about catching this new disease. There's not a lot known about this new virus. It's not a disease, it's a virus. But her boyfriend has this magnificent feast of sushi and octopus because it's just about their 5th year together as boyfriend and girlfriend. And he proposes marriage, and she accepts. They eat their feast. And then she gets really, really sick. She's got the virus. And then she spends some time in the hospital recovering. And this disease does something very odd to people. People who catch this disease, I keep saying disease, it's a virus. People get very odd side effects. Some people catch it, get better, nothing more. But then there's other people who, when they recover, their bodies are changed. They can no longer metabolize food the way they used to. Sunlight hurts them, and they need to have a dietary supplement. Brains, especially human brains. And of course, Aaron now has the desire to eat human brains. And then that's the first part. There are 3 sort of interconnected novellas in this book. All the characters intermingle, so you will get to know all the characters in the first novella. And then each character gets she gets her own little novella. And the stories just get weirder and weirder and weirder. And I just enjoyed it more and more and more. Because there really are very few male characters in this book. All the main characters are women. This book was written by a woman. And I found that it's a very refreshing approach to read. And okay, I know. Bad form in reviewing to move the camera and show the cat. Oh well. Let me wrap this up by saying I highly recommend this book. It's probably going to go down as one of my favorite novels of the year, just because it was that strange and that unique. And there was a comment in the afterword from the author, and I guess one of her editors, when she submitted the first novella, said, "It's just really weird." And I've said that a lot, because this book really is weird. But if you like weird fiction, you'll love this book. I have finished my 41st book. That is The Black Corridor by Michael Moorcock, a science fiction novel originally written in 1969. I first read this when I was in high school, sometime during the early 80s. It is the story of a man, a British man, on a spaceship, alone. Well, he's not quite alone. There are 12 hibernation pods, and he is taking his family to a new planet to immigrate, because things in England and the world are not going very well. It's just a bad time all around. And the bad time is really kind of interesting. It talks about a Britain when there is a political party known as the Patriots, and they are scaring people. They say that aliens walk among us, and you cannot tell an alien from a regular human being, and that you have to ferret out these aliens. And the aliens, it seems, disguise themselves as Welshmen or Irishmen or Scotsmen. And Ryan owned a toy manufacturer. He was a rather wealthy businessman, and he has to decide to lay off all these bad potential people because they're not true English people. And that's the world he lives in. People are scared. It's not right to talk to strangers in this England. So he's now on a spaceship. I won't get into the details on how he gets on the spaceship, but he is alone. He is taking care of his 12 family members on this spaceship. It is a 5-year journey, and he is by himself, and he is slowly going mad being on that spaceship by himself. Or is that the real story? Is there something else? It's a shame that this novel seems to be completely out of print right now. You can pick up used copies. I was very fortunate that I picked up this copy for $2.49 from my used bookstore. But when you look online, like thrift books, it's usually going for over $10, maybe $20, which is a shame. I don't think it's worth that amount of money. But if you ever see this for like this price, go ahead and pick it up. I think science fiction fans will truly enjoy this. Okay, that is a wrap for week 7. I'm pretty happy with my reading this week. Not as good as it can be. I do fart around a lot during the day, thinking that I'll have more time to read later on in the day. And when that later on comes around, well, you know, day's gone. Well, anyway, thank you for watching, and keep on reading.